God hates fags is a profound theological statement that we're prepared to defend from the Bible against all comers. Fags is a contraction of the word faggots, which is an elegant metaphor for all the homosexuals and their neighbors. Fags. It's elegant and it's appropriate. They're fags. They call fags a contraction of faggots because they have kindled the fires of God Almighty's wrath. Kindle the fires of wrath in their lust one for another. Kindle the fires of wrath by virtue of the place they're headed, where the worm that eats on them never dies and the fires never quench. By a multitude of common sense arguments, God hates fags is not only true, it's profound, and it's divine. And we are intent upon publishing that message to the whole world. God indeed hates fags.
You just heard the words of Fred Phelps, the infamous pastor of the Westboro Baptist Church in Topeka, Kansas, whose church now is quite a national item for their anti-gay rhetoric, for opposing virtually anything to do with homosexuality in the country, and most infamously protesting at the funerals of fallen soldiers from Iraq and Afghanistan. What makes Phelps an issue at this particular time is that the Supreme Court has now agreed to hear a case where they will decide whether or not Phelps has a First Amendment free speech right to stand across the street on public sidewalks and protest at the funerals of dead soldiers.
What I'm here is to preach the truth to these people who are going in there to worship the body of a dead guy, a soldier who was fighting in an army that has made God their #1 enemy.
A federal appeals court has now held that Phelps has a free speech right to spew forth his form of hatred. And again, as I said, the Supreme Court is going to hear that particular case. The case is ripe for decision because a majority of the states in the country have now passed laws against Phelps and his right, the so-called right to free speech at funerals across from dead soldiers. There's even a federal law, which Bush signed into law, which also prohibits certain kind of protests at funerals, particularly aimed at Fred Phelps and his church members. Phelps even has a website. It's called God Hates Fags. His church was started in 1955, and it mainly consists of Phelps and his family. He has numerous grandchildren, and also his children that he has spawned himself are members of his church, and they basically carry the same anti-gay, anti-homosexual line as Phelps. Phelps basically burst on the national scene with the Matthew Shepard killing, the Wyoming college student. And since then, Phelps has gone on to basically say that America's stand on homosexuality, which he believes is pro-homosexual, has contributed to all kinds of disasters and bad things that's happened to America. And here's a list of what Phelps believes, because America's view on homosexuality is positive, it's condemned the country, and that's why we have these kind of disasters. He insists that the Space Shuttle Columbia crashed as a way to punish the U.S. and NASA and astronauts because they didn't speak out against homosexuality. He's offered prayer and thanksgiving for the 9/11 terrorist attacks, and he's even traveled to New York City to protest rescue efforts, mock victims. He's also praised the devastation resulting from such disasters as the tsunami in Asia and Hurricane Katrina as God's way of punishing those who so-called like fags, as he puts it. And most recently, he's protested the District of Columbia's decision to allow gay marriage. In fact, his daughter Margie came forth and basically said she's spewing forth the hatred of God, that allowing gay marriage in the United States is the final showdown that America is going to be destroyed. The real question before us is, though, and it's the legal issue right now, what's the Supreme Court going to do and what should they do in this particular point in case? I think Fred Phelps is really an example that America works in terms of its free speech values and what it protects. There's the great statement by Voltaire, the great French author and activist, who said, "Although I may hate your speech, I'm willing to die to protect it." That's what we really stood for in America. What Fred Phelps has to say is despicable, it's deplorable, it's awful, it's full of hate. But the question is, if we want free speech to survive in America, we have to protect those outside the realm, what we might call the minority. We must remember that James Madison, who wrote the First Amendment, said the primary purpose of the First Amendment was to protect the minority against the majority. He wasn't talking about racial minorities, no. What he was talking about is that minority of citizens that's so far outside the mainstream, that appears so extreme, that that's what the First Amendment protects. They're usually the ones that are in the court cases. They're the ones testing the limits of the First Amendment. So if we want freedom to survive in America, unfortunately, we have to stand up for people like Fred Phelps and say, hey, I don't agree with what you have to say, Pastor Phelps. You're full of hate, but I'm willing to die to stand up and defend it.